Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited to be bringing you 15 new fall thrillers that are coming out that I'm personally very excited for. I did this for summer and you guys really enjoyed it. I'll link that video above if you want to check it out. I did 2 parts, but we're going to get into fall, which I think is just the best time of year for thrillers. Let me know if you agree with me down below in the comments. Let's hop into the first one. Our first one is actually kind of a wedding engagement themed one, which normally I wouldn't associate with fall, but I thought this just fits so perfectly. It's called The Engagement Party, a novel by Finley Turner. This will be coming out on November 7th, 2023, and it involves a bride-to-be as the primary suspect. It's recommended for fans of Sarah Pinenborough and Ruth Ware. This one sounds like a blast. It sounds like everything I want in a thriller. Our main character in this is Cass, and she has been recently engaged to Murray after a whirlwind romance, and you know, they're getting really excited, everything's going well, and they're actually like invited to their own engagement party, it sounds like, by his family. And Cass is really shocked to find out that he actually comes from this very wealthy family, very like well-established, reputable, wealthy family, like very, very wealthy family, and she's pretty shocked by this, but she's like, okay, you know, cool, like maybe perk, I don't know. But she's getting ready for the engagement party and she starts to receive these threatening messages over social media, which is obviously disconcerting. And then at the actual engagement party, a body is found and she is the prime suspect because she's the one who's kind of like the outlier, you know, everyone else there is, you know, known to the family. They're also maybe like kind of in the same social class, if you will, and she's kind of the interloper, so they're all looking at her suspiciously, and her dark past is also starting to come up from the depths, and it might have something to do with the murder. So this one just sounds incredible. I love the drama, I love the suspense, I love the wealthy people drama, like the super crazy wealthy. I think this will be fun. This next one is so incredibly unique. It sounds like it's like a multimedia thriller, which I've never read anything like before. This one is called Murder in the Family, a novel by Cara Hunter. It's coming out on September 19th, 2023, so very, very soon. And this is Cara Hunter's American debut, but she is a best-selling British like crime writer. So she's not new to writing for sure, but it's kind of an American debut, which I'm excited for. So this one is multimedia because it's actually written as like a teleplay, and it has like coroner's notes, photos, like pictures and different like multimedia aspects. I've never really read a lot of multimedia books, but I've really wanted to. So this is described as both an immersive thriller and a whodunit. The basic premise for this is that in 2003, this stepfather of a now famous filmmaker, he was 10 at the time, but he's now famous, fast forward 20 years, but he was murdered, and the only people at home at the time were like the filmmaker's mother and like 2 sisters, and they all swear that they had nothing to do with it. They didn't see anything, they didn't hear anything, you know, there really wasn't any leads for the police to go on. Well, fast forward to the future, we now have him, he's a famous filmmaker, and this like podcast who really dives into true crime cases and tries to solve them is now poking its nose around this cold case. So this sounds fascinating. I love the idea of a cold case with the multimedia. I don't know if this is more mystery or thriller because it's described as both an immersive thriller and a whodunit, so keep that in mind. It could be a little bit of both, but it sounds really interesting. Another one that's coming out in just a couple of days is called The Hotel. This is written by Emily Shiner, and this is described as a gripping psychological thriller with a killer twist. So this one takes place at this beautiful clifftop hotel. It does take place during like the winter or fall because there is a giant snowstorm that does create some kind of isolation trope, which I'm very excited for. Basically, we have a married couple and they run the hotel, and it sounds like they have like a young son as well that they're living with on the premises. And one day this family, the Rowe family, comes to check into the hotel, and they have a teenage daughter, and they're acting overly familiar, like they've been there before, but the wife can't remember them at all. Like she has no recollection of them. She's concerned and she brings this up to her husband, but her husband's like, you know, we have so many people who come and stay at the hotel, like we've probably just forgotten, it's no big deal. You know, let them be a little overfamiliar, no big deal. Well, things start to happen and the wife is getting overly concerned for good reason. She's actually ends up getting like locked into a room, and she's convinced that someone in the Rowe family did that to her, but the husband's convinced, you know, it was just an accident, and so the tensions just keep building, and then the snowstorm hits, and I'm just, yes. everything about this. Love isolation trope. I love the setting. I love everything about this. It sounds so much like such a blast. Next we have a debut novel. I'm very excited for this one. It's called People to Follow. It's by Olivia Worley and it will be coming out on Halloween, October 31st. This one, I love the premise for this. This just sounds like so much fun. And basically we have 10 teen influencers and they're invited on this reality TV show called like The Real Life, and basically for 3 weeks they are completely cut off from social media, technology, the likes. So they're on this like island, it sounds like, and they're there and there's a, you know, an interesting cast of characters. There's like some disgraced social media stars, there's some people who've been canceled, there's some people who were like child stars turned influencers, there's all these different people. Sounds like an interesting mix. I'm just really interested. I feel like influencer thrillers are always very fun with the social media component, and they're unplugged from it. But tragedy strikes when someone ends up dead and the crew, the production crew that's supposed to be like checking on them and coming to the island doesn't show up. So now you have these influencers, they're trapped on the island, they have a dead body, and they can't reach out to anybody because they have no phone, no connection, nothing. And they start to receive messages and threats from their #1 follower and a sponsor, it sounds like, who threatens to reveal their deepest, darkest secrets. So this combines everything I love. Isolation trope. I love the social media aspect because I think social media can be just vicious for like a thriller. I think it's really interesting. They're trapped, you know, it's just everything about this. The slow burn of like revealing secrets and the suspense. This one sounds so fascinating. Our next one has Christmas in the title, so you know I had to include it on this list. And this one is called Christmas Presents. This will be coming out on October 24th. It's by Lisa Unger, and it is a She Reads Most Anticipated Thriller. So basically the premise for this is, instead of presents this Christmas, a true crime podcaster is opening up things that are left in the past, that people want left in the past. Our main character in this is Matlin. She runs a bookshop and she was a victim, or like a survivor I should say, of an attack by this man who ended up killing her best friend, and also like 2 sisters who disappeared who were also friends of hers. And it sounds like it happened years ago. It's a cold case now. She's running the bookshop. She's taking care of her father, who was the sheriff at the time and became very obsessed with the crime until a stroke forced him to, you know, have to put everything aside, and now she's caring for him. Well, she thinks everything's, you know, she's trying to move on with her life, just make the best of it, and this man comes to her bookshop one day, and he is actually a failed novelist turned true crime podcaster, and he's actually quite good at what he does. But he uses pretty unethical practices to get the information, and he's determined to dig up this cold case and solve it once and for all. There's a blizzard that strikes the town, so again, kind of a cut off from everybody else, just that extra cold, icy suspense that I love, so this one had to make the list. This next one has the most beautiful cover, which is like deceiving because of the topic, but it's so pretty. It's called The Stranger Upstairs, written by Lisa M. Matlin, and this will be coming out on September 12th. This is a debut novel as well. So our main character in this is Sarah, and she is a self-help writer and therapist, and she has recently bought with her husband this like rundown Victorian house, and she got a killer deal on it because someone was recently murdered in it. So, you know, kind of the stigma, no one really wants to buy it, but she's determined to use this as a distraction. She runs a blog and she's determined to make like the renovations part of like a blog revival and a distraction from her failing marriage. Well, they move in, she's putting all this effort into revitalizing the home, but the marriage is still kind of failing. Husband's on the couch, not the effect she wanted. Neighbors seem to hate her guts for some reason. She doesn't really know why, and the more she looks into the house, the worse it gets. Like, she starts to find more things, there's like disturbing notes, and she starts to realize that this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this house and what is very wrong with it. So absolutely horrifying. There's something about like stories with like kind of a house with a gruesome past that really get me, so this one sounds absolutely creepy, perfect for this time of year. Next we have a cruise thriller. It's called Death on the Water by CJ Birch, and it will be coming out on November 14th, 2023. So we have a cruise ship called Ocean Summit. It's on its inaugural cruise. The cruise director is excited, but she's disappointed because things don't get off to a good start. Basically, there was a body found on board, and while it's ruled a suicide, she actually suspects murder. And another passenger on the boat, who's an investigative journalist, agrees with her. So the two of these women team up together, and they're trying to delve into this, figure out what happened. But at the same time, they're having to come to the realization that it might be more important just to focus on staying alive for the 8-day cruise. So very high stakes, really fun. I feel like I might save this for summer, but I am very excited this is coming out. It just sounds like a blast. Speaking of oceans, this is another actually cruise one, so I'm going to do these back to back. It's called Beneath the Surface, a novel, The Kingsley. It is book 1 in the series, written by Cara, Rouda. And I love this already. The premise for this is so great. So we have a very wealthy family, and basically this is like a family game to inherit, and it's high stakes. We have like a billionaire, like patriarch, and him and his wife invite their children on this cruise, and the two sons and their wives are aware that this is very high stakes. They need to prove themselves, they need to be mingling, they need to be networking, they need to be proving their worth to be like the ones who inherit the most, or like maybe get a hold of family business, something like that. But things are kind of thrown for a loop when the estranged daughter that wasn't really invited shows up as well. Unfortunately, she's actually the least surprising thing because the stakes are quickly rise. Things get more intense, family games are playing, and who is going to inherit it all? I love it. I love like a good family drama like this. It sounds like just so much fun. Next we have The Intern, a novel. This is written by Michele Campbell. It will be coming out on October 3rd, 2023. And our main character in this is Madison Riviera. And Madison basically gets a job as an intern working for Judge Conroy, and I believe her name's Catherine Conroy, and basically she is actually on the case of Madison's brother. And Madison's trying to get close to this judge, trying to make sure her brother's case is handled well, because her brother actually then accuses the judge, the very same judge that Madison is working for, of being corrupt. Then he goes missing. So now Madison is kind of panicked, and she's in this cat and mouse game with the judge, trying to figure out, is she a corrupt judge? Is she a criminal? Is she actually, you know, an ethical judge and the brother was wrong? Where is her brother? This one just sounds like a very psychological, scary, like kind of legal thriller. Definitely had to include it. I think the cover for this is really, I like the cover. It just really stands out to me. I really like it. Speaking of cool covers, this one really stood out to me. It's called Blood Sisters by Vanessa, Lillie. This will be coming out on Halloween, October 31st. And our main character is actually an archaeologist for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And our main character, Sid, lives in Rhode Island, and she's kind of trying to put behind her like bad past while protecting like indigenous people and their rights and like history and stuff like that. So Sid spends her days in Rhode Island, and she's trying to protect her indigenous people's past while also escaping her own. But she's forced to return back to her home and like I believe her tribe when her sister actually goes missing, and a skull is found around the same time, and she's really worried for her sister. She refuses to let her sister become one of many indigenous women who have gone missing. Unfortunately, I know in real life the statistics for that are just awful, but so Sid is working to make sure her sister does not end up like that. But as she is going through trying to solve clues and everything, she's getting a very cold reception from the town. I'm guessing maybe because of some things in her own past, but she's also uncovering a trail of missing young women in the area, and she's determined to bring up these secrets to find these women, even if the town is resistant to it. It sounds like a very, very interesting thriller. Very, I'd say, you know, more like, I'm gonna say like more of like a realistic kind of thriller where she's digging into the past. She's really looking into this. I really like thrillers that take place with family, and I like the bond that she clearly has with her sister, and I thought this cover especially did really stand out as well. Next we have The Taken Ones by Jess, Lourey. This will be coming out on September 19th, and this is a Steinbeck and Reed thriller. It is book 1 in this series. So we have two timelines in this. We have summer of 1980, and basically there was rumors about this like, I don't know, being or something in the forest, and like that people shouldn't go in the forest, and these 3 young girls went into the forest. Only one comes out, but her memory is gone, and the other 2 they're missing. They're then called The Taken Ones. Fast forward to summer 2022, and we have Reed, who is a detective, and Steinbeck, who is a forensic scientist, and the two of them are working together because recently a woman was found just now buried alive, and she was clutching in her hand like a heart-shaped necklace, like a charm necklace, and it was from one of the girls that was taken. So that's kind of connecting the two cases together. They're digging into it, they're digging into the past to try to figure out what the connection is, and it sounds like the detective might have some kind of history with the girls in some way. So I'm really curious about this one. I like thrillers that have like the two timelines going on. I think this one sounds very interesting. Let me know what you think. This next one is definitely kind of a interesting sort of revenge thriller. It's called It Takes Monsters by Mandy McHugh. It's going to be released on October 17th, and this is a She Reads most anticipated thriller. So our main character in this is Victoria Tate, and she's just sick and tired of her husband Warner, who is this described as an incompetent, controlling man. She is sick of it, and she actually decides to plan his murder. So she's listening to true crime podcasts, she's putting together the plans, but things kind of go awry when the date that she decides to execute the murder, this like costume ball they're supposed to go to, is rescheduled for that date. She's like, okay, fine, great. But right before she can actually do the deed, her husband is actually murdered by somebody else. And instead of feeling relief at this, Victoria is concerned because the killer is now taunting her like they knew what she was up to this whole time, and they're threatening to reveal stuff about her, and the police are actually looking at her as a suspect even though she didn't actually do it. So now she has to figure out who would have wanted her husband dead, and it turns out that her husband was a lot better at keeping secrets than she gave him credit for. So I love this. I love the whole just bring out the secrets. I think this is a really interesting premise. I like that we have a very morally gray character, clearly, and this cover is just sizzling. Very, just gives you like creeps. This is described as a novel of suspense but also a twisty thriller, so maybe kind of part of both genres, but interesting. I think the cover for this really captures a vibe, and I like this vibe, so I'm hoping this will be a really good read. This next one has a title that just gives you chills, and it's called When I'm Dead. This is written by Hannah Morrissey. It is a Black Harbor novel, and it will be coming out on Halloween as well. So our main character in this is Rowan, and she's a medical examiner, and she gets this bone-chilling call one October night when she gets a call to come and look at her daughter's like friend's body because her daughter's friend has been discovered. So she has to start looking into this, which is horrifying enough of its own because I'm sure she knew the girl, but then she makes an even more scary discovery when she finds out that her daughter is missing. So Chloe has also disappeared, and she's having to now hunt down and like follow the clues to try to find her daughter alongside her husband. But the more they look into Chloe's disappearance, the more they're convinced, did they really know their daughter? Because all these secret transgressions are coming up, and they're really, these like secret transgressions are kind of threatening to tear their marriage apart, and they're just wondering, can they find her? And Rowan also has some kind of dark past, and she feels like this is punishment and like karma catching up to her. So lots of interesting layers, interesting cover. I really like the premise for this. I like that our main character is a medical like investigator. I think that's always kind of a unique perspective, and this one's definitely probably in my top 3 for this list. For those of you that like a slasher film, especially the ones from the 90s, you'll enjoy this one. This is called The Graveyard Shift. It's by Maria Lewis, and it's coming out on September 12th, and it's recommended for a Halloween read for fans of Riley Sager and Grady Hendrix. I love the premise for this one. I've never watched a slasher film. I don't think I could make it through it, but this one sounds really interesting. Our main character is Tinsel, and she has been busting her butt for 3 years for this true crime like podcast radio show that she runs, and it's not all that it's cracked up to be. She basically makes barely enough to cover rent. She's putting her strain on her relationship because of the long hours and like late night hours and everything, but things change for the better and the worst when on Halloween she receives a call on air, and she thinks it's a Halloween prank because she hears someone screaming, but it turns out, because the police visit her later that night, someone actually died on her show like while they were on air with her, so it was not a prank. And her sister Pandora is really fascinated by this because she's a big true crime person, and she kind of encourages Tinsel to look into it, and Tinsel's show immediately takes off because of this publicity, because this is obviously a very unique situation. And detectives continue to reassure Tinsel and Pandora that they will catch the killer, but bodies are continuing to drop. They're receiving threatening messages, and they decide they have to team up with the detective to solve this before someone else gets hurt, maybe even one of them. Like the idea for this, I think it's interesting. Tinsel seems like she's a little bit more on the reluctant side. Her sister's like kind of all in on this, so I think that could be a really interesting dichotomy between the two of them, and I just thought this sounded like very interesting, and again, Halloween, perfect. Okay, and this last one, it's technically in winter, I think, by a few days, but we're just going to include it because I found it when I was making this list. It's called The Weekend Retreat by Laskowski, and it's coming out on December 26th, and this takes place with a wealthy family vacation at a lush winery estate. So we have another one where weather plays a hand in this, which I love. We have the Van Ness siblings, and they are very wealthy. There's 3 sets of them, including like their partners, and every year they do a weekend retreat at this lush winery. They're all the heirs to this like copper business, so they are sitting pretty, but they all get together for like a birthday celebration every year at this winery, and they're all looking to kind of just kick back, relax, take off the pressure from their daily lives. But of course it's a thriller, so that's not quite what happens. Even with the wine and the remote getaway and the lavish, lush place they're in, they can't escape from the building tensions, the secrets they keep from each other, and these secrets are threatening to come out and boil over, and then they are all caught up in a torrential rainstorm. So the question here is, will the secrets destroy them, or will they destroy each other first? And who has been watching them from the vineyard? Yes, everything I want right there. So that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below, what are your top 3 from this list that you are most excited for? I will leave my top 3 in the comments down below. Thank you again for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you do like thriller videos, mystery videos. I do those every week on my channel, and I don't want you to miss out, so hit subscribe. I will link my thriller playlist above if you want to check out some other thriller videos I've done recently, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!